Good morning, everyone.
Morning, everybody.
Hi. It's Turnaround Tuesday, and this morning Jeff and I are talking about education and priorities for our state. And we are up in Denver, Colorado for a beautiful fundraiser, and it snowed last night, and our kids are outside throwing snowballs at each other. So if we get a little distracted, we have to make sure they're a little bit supervised.
And this morning, we're going to take a few minutes where everybody gets on this morning. So welcome, Patricia. Welcome, Shayla, Shaylin. And Jackie's we're really going to be talking a little bit about Jackie's platform and what she wants to do as First Lady. I'll try not to interrupt and talk too much.
He's going to try.
But we do want to take questions. And so I will be, since we're up in Colorado, I'll be monitoring the questions and hopefully not miss anybody's questions. So I'll leave it up to Jackie. Morning, Ben. Morning, Callie. Oh, Callie's on this morning. I see Jeff there. Jason, thank you guys all for joining us this morning. Well, you want to get started?
Yeah.
I mean, we always try and give it a couple of seconds for people can tune in, but we know that. Hey, James, how are you? So why don't we get started?
Let's do this. So this will be my first Turnaround Tuesday, obviously, but a little bit about my background. I'm born in Albuquerque. I went to Bandelier Elementary, Wilson Middle School, Manzano High School, and then I started out at UNM and realized it wasn't that great. So I went down to NMSU and did my
Hey. We have a lot of Lobo fans out there.
Oh, sorry. I do live in Albuquerque.
Yes, we have a divided family. I'm a Lobo. She's an Aggie.
So I did my undergrad in marketing and my graduate in a general MBA and worked for a software company at the time while I was down there. And I've always had this passion for technology and education. So while I was doing my MBA full time, I worked for a software company called SoftSource, and they did adult educational software for Alamogordo and the labs. Then I went with the company once Learning Company purchased SoftSource up to the Bay Area. So I lived in Menlo Park and worked in Fremont, California for a while. All this time, Jeff and I were dating long distance. He was in LA at the time. And then Mattel purchased my company and couldn't work for Barbie, didn't want to. So I moved down to Los Angeles. Excuse me, the allergies are bugging me. And I headed their girls line. I started their girls software gaming line and their creativity line. So for Disney Interactive, I was there several years and got to know, especially about the girls gaming. That's what I was very passionate about. And I got to work with all the Imagineers and all those wonderful engineers who design all the roller coasters and fun things like that for my creativity line of software. And then I decided to start consulting because that was easier. Once I got pregnant and was able to stay home and do some consulting. And by the time the boys were 2, we realized how we missed our family and how we would eventually move back to Albuquerque. We started seriously looking at that.
And we knew how, when we got back to Albuquerque, how frustrated we were with some of the educational stuff and some of the stuff that wasn't happening in New Mexico.
So, I mean, it took a few years because our kids weren't in public school at the time when they were 2, obviously. But we started looking at pre-Ks and we saw the difference between kids that had a pre-K to go to, or their parents were very verbal and their vocabulary expanded probably. I think they say if you talk to your kids a lot, it expands their vocabulary between 3,000 to 5,000 words. And that just explodes them and gives them a better pathway to start in school.
You know, it was funny. I go back to when the boys were born. Jackie actually taught them sign language, and which amazed me how the kids learn sign language. Our kids didn't cry that much because of the sign language that they had learned because they could communicate with us. I remember that. And but also what we had learned later, obviously Jackie knew, I didn't know, but their motor skills, and it really helped the kids kind of learn quicker. And then we started, Jackie started in-home programs like the Kumans of the world, reading programs, project learning programs for the kids. And we literally saw our kids explode and grow.
They did,
And we actually believe in dual language, so we had them in dual language programs, and we saw our kids kind of grow from there. But it was amazing how when our kids got to kindergarten or first grade, how the teachers had told us that they were advanced by about half of the class, just because they had early child education, early family intervention programs that we were very fortunate to send our kids through. So so we lived it firsthand with the boys, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And our kids are in APS. I'm a product of APS. Jeff went to Santa Fe Public School.
Santa Fe High, class of 80.
And so 85% of Albuquerque's kids or New Mexico's kids go to the public school system.
95% of our kids in 95%? New Mexico, 95% of kids in New Mexico are going to get educated in our education system. Yeah. So
we have to make this work because that's the majority of our kids.
And I know we want to keep this to about 30 minutes, and we're already starting to get some questions, and we have some really great turnout this morning. So thank you all for joining us. But I really, what we want to take away this morning is a lot of you have got to know Jackie on the campaign trail. I get to see Jackie a little bit more. I've always said, we're a team. This was a team decision when we decided to run for governor. We both agreed that right now, my opponent or our political leaders, our kids are the ones that are suffering the most. Besides the highest unemployment, we're ranked 50th in education. We have the lowest high school graduation rate in the country. And even though our kids are going to higher ed or going to schools, we see that they're not prepared for those. And we've seen pathways cut from our kids across the board. And I know you want to talk a little bit about that. But Jackie's been very, very passionate about education and about what she wants to do as First Lady when we win, and the changes that she wants to make. And as First Lady, how she'll be involved in the community and be involved in New Mexico firsthand. So
just a few things that I've been mulling over for probably 2 years, just driving me crazy. And one of the reasons why we decided to run, we just see that there's no consistency in education. And when there is consistency, it's like a broad brush, and you can't address communities like that in education because rural communities like Chama have different needs than some of the APS schools. So starting from the ground up, you have to address each school system, what the community needs. So the community would put together a proposal about, this is what we want to do. This is the books we want to use. These are what our kids and the families around those kids need to support. And so we have to look at this whole program in education from a community basis up. Now, that's not saying I don't believe in standardized testing. I think that when a child moves from Santa Fe to Albuquerque to Las Cruces, they shouldn't be behind in any of their learning. So I would like to see some consistency on usage of books, but that doesn't mean that they can't customize their learning to what the school needs. So ending the PARCC test is not even a discussion point. It needs to happen immediately. I think there's only 3 states left that do the PARCC, and we're one of those states hanging on for political reasons. Yeah.
And Jack and I, we've talked about this, where I believe when we signed up PARCC, and I was on an advisory board at the time, both at UNM and both to Governor Martinez's nonpartisan group, when we signed on PARCC. I think there were 38, maybe 39 states that had signed up to PARCC. I think today
it was high.
It was high, whatever the numbers are now. Yeah. I think today is three or four states left. And one of the things we've talked about with educators, one of the things we've talked about with administrators and business leaders, is we know the millions of dollars our state has invested into PARCC. And by changing or going to another system, is that going to cost us more money? Is that going to spend us a lot more money? But what we do realize, and our kids are now in 3rd grade, so they're now starting to go through the PARCC test, and we see our kids already kind of anxious about this test.
Yes. Yeah.
We're not against evaluating our children, and we're not against evaluating our teachers. And in fact, we have a lot of friends that are teachers that want to evaluate. But we do realize right now we're teaching to the test. It's not benefiting our children. It's not benefiting our state. We know the millions of dollars we have invested into PARCC, but we have to look at something better that's better for New Mexico.
Right.
And as Jackie and I've said many, many times, is that Santa Fe, the capital, is not going to be able to educate your kids.
Right.
It has to be from the community up. Now, PED and the governor, the First Lady, we will give resources, but we literally have to take the community has to take the lead, and we believe in community. We believe in community, the community programs, community schools.
Right. Even some of the programs to give parents extra support. Things like math and science, they're scary to parents. And if we give those parents extra support, and if we have, there's some schools in Albuquerque, I don't know which ones they are, but they have like spaghetti nights where they will actually feed their community. Kids can come in, do the homework, and they parents and teachers can get together and say, okay, how do we teach our kids? What can I do to improve my child? Or even just to teach the parents how to read. We have some of those cases where the parents didn't pass 8th grade. So it's all about empowering the people in the community without frustrating the people who are coming in, because once you get your child's evaluation, a lot of parents kind of freeze up because they don't know what to do with that evaluation or how to help their kids. But if we have more of an open communication, have more of a welcome atmosphere and a dialogue between teachers and parents and kids, and so we're all on the same page because we all want to be on the same page going forward, we have to do this together. It's not just the teachers. It's not just the teacher's responsibility once they start school to educate our kids. And they do enough of that. They do enough of what they do, and teachers work overtime and hours on end, put in their own money for the supplies that they should be getting paid for. And it's not right. We have to embrace our teachers, and that means also giving them a pay raise and also giving them the training that they're requesting and that they need. So it's training the teachers, and it's also the evaluation system is broken. I know that's the case. I know Jeff talks to some teachers because they should be the ones that help design the program. I know our teachers don't get to evaluate the principals, but it goes from the top down. So there's this whole, the evaluation system through the teachers is also broken. So, and the other things that I want to talk about, so ending park tests, that's a no-brainer. Also with the Pearsons, I know Pearsons has their fingers in other areas that our state probably benefited from this governor and her staff. So I would like to see that end. We need to be unpartisan in going forward, because this is education and this is going to benefit our whole community. And some of the other things that I want to talk about are basically better lunches and the food that we give our students. And I've seen it in my kids. I've been guilty of feeding our kids candy and feeding them a bad lunch when I'm tired or a bad dinner when I'm tired, and I see their behavior. And it's amazing what happens when we feed our kids fruit and vegetables. And of course, they probably won't want to eat those things because it's a taste bud training. And if they're getting bad and processed foods at home, those chemicals are in our system, and they show up. They show up in anxiety, in test scores, in behavior, in attention. And I know that Espanola and the Valley of the apple growers, like they can't even sell their apples to their public school system. And we should be taking advantage of all the agriculture that we have in this state and making it a priority by growing good food and getting it into our schools and teaching the kids, like, this is how we eat. This is how we grow our food. You know, when I was in Bandelier, I used to help the lunch ladies. And I think it was because we needed some help with our money financially. And I was lucky enough to get to know those ladies in the back, and they were kind and sweet to me. And I learned skills there. I didn't get a knife or anything, so I didn't get to chop, but I got to like prepare food, and I got to know them. And that ultimately gave me a little bit more hands-on experience.
Let's do this. We're at the 14-minute mark. We already have 3 or 4 questions.
Okay.
I'm going to, as the host of the Turnaround Tuesdays, I got to keep our guest, because Jackie is our guest today. But I know there's a couple of little things. Let's just make bullet points as First Lady, what really Jackie's goals are going to be, and working with us. One of the things Jackie and I have talked about is we've literally sat at different times with over 10 funders, the Kellogg's, the McEwens of the world. Folks, there's about $300 million sitting on the sideline from nonprofits that want to help us with early child education in-home poverty programs, food programs. We have literally crawled back almost $300 million, that funds that have gone unused back to the general fund within education, within early child education, with food programs and family intervention. So we know the money's there. And Jackie and I have talked about it. We are very open to signing a bill that we would actually increase the funding from the land grant fund into education and early child education. It's amazing. We laughed this week how our opponent now is talking about that after we've been talking about it for almost a year. But we've also found monies that we feel going out of state or going at the top that we can move back into the classroom. So we have found $225 million within PED that we can move back down into the classroom. That's 8%. So you're going to hear us talk about moving 8% back from PED down into the classrooms. We have to start empowering our superintendents. We have to start empowering our communities, our teachers, from the classroom up, and stop going from the top down.
Right.
And I know, Jackie, talk a little bit about some of your priorities that you wanted to as kind of as your pledge.
Okay. So those better lunches, park, extracurricular activities. I know that when we were kids, we had much more activities. And if you wanted to do student council or art or football or anything like that to get a kid engaged, because when you find that teacher that can change the way you think about a subject, they change your life. I remember in 7th grade, I realized that I was a good writer, but it wasn't until that teacher at Wilson Middle School told me I was that I didn't know that. And so teachers can make or break students and their wills and how they feel about a subject. So I think getting kids involved with any kind of extracurricular activities and also giving teachers more power, and a lot of them have masters and PhDs, give them more power, because this is the area at which they decided to focus their life and their career on. And we need to empower those people because this is what they focused on. Also, did you want to add anything?
Well, you talked about classroom sizes. You wrote about classroom sizes and trade skills.
Classroom sizes are one of the hardest things to deal with, and they're too big. And our kids right now are in 29 and 28 size of a classroom. So we have to decrease that. It is the most expensive thing to do. It is the most important thing to do, because when you have a lower classroom size, you can begin to that one-on-one communication and actually turn kids and understand how they're learning. And their test scores will go up when you lower the classroom size. Okay, so also from pre-K, you've probably heard of us talk about it 100 times. We need pre-K. We need required for all.
61% of our kids in New Mexico have no early child intervention, no early preschool. One of our programs, as Jackie mentioned earlier, is we call it in-home early education and family intervention. We will bring families together with a lot of the food programs that are already out there. We will bring families together. We will teach the parents on one side of the room how to be parents, the skills that they need to have their kids. And then on the other side, we'll work with high school and college kids that hopefully will get credit towards an educational program to become teachers and work with the kids. What we learned from our children is kids are sponges. And if you give them skills, if you give them opportunities, and they learn, and folks, these programs that we're talking about literally take 15, 20 minutes a day, and the parents have to work with the kids in the house. And then with the preschool for all, and then kindergarten, when they start kindergarten, we feel most of these kids will be prepared for kindergarten. And then there's a great program called K3 Plus, which works 27 extra days out of the year for the kids that are behind. We know right now about 40% of our kids are behind up to the 3rd grade level. These are very successful programs that we know for a fact work for our kids and get our kids caught up, so we don't have that 38-40% of our 3rd graders not being prepared for the next level.
And flunking them is not the answer.
Yeah, holding them back is not the answer. So we have to give them the skills and the parents the skills, again, from the community up. And by the way, if you go back and look at Carlsbad, Artesia, Clovis, Las Cruces, you go look at those school districts, and I challenge you to go look at those school districts. Those communities, those superintendents have done a fabulous job in those areas, and they see great improvement from their schools. Yeah. So Jackie, as First Lady, will take a lead. We'll take the lead on the educational platform, making sure we're getting that done. Work directly with teachers. We have so many teachers around our state that are supporting our campaign. So we really look forward to doing that.
And I'll wrap this up before you get to those questions. So this also goes to trade skills, because I started with my business partner, Anthony Lupinetti. We started coding for elementary age kids, and I did a TED Talk on that. It should be up in the next few weeks. You guys are more than welcome to go look at that. And my point being is that every kid should have the opportunity to learn coding. Not every kid will be a coder, but our world gets more and more automated. And so I want them to at least be aware of the possibilities of learning how to code, because it helps you think. It teaches you how to think and process and logically put together things. So for the kids who are going to be going into the trade schools or the military, those skills are needed too. They're just needed to be applied in a different way. So our program is basically 0 to 20. And I would like to see more counseling in schools, more dealing with like mindfulness and yoga in schools, because our kids have a rough enough life and parents are stressed out enough that they make those things to deal with all the stress and anxiety that goes on with their everyday life. And it's important that we give them those skills.
Or programs like Restoration Justice that we can roll into our schools.
Like Restoration Justice.
And I know Jessica has talked to us a lot about it.
Yeah.
Representative Pat has talked to us a lot about this. And then I see Wendy on here, who's a dear friend of ours. Early pre-K empowers women and families. Absolutely. Those are the things we're talking about. Anyway, I'll have Jackie wrap it up at the end of this. We are now about 20 minutes into it. Let's take some questions, Jack. The first question, and this is probably for me. This is from Joseph Gonzalez. Will you appoint a Secretary of Ed that has some time in New Mexico classrooms? Joseph, thank you so much for that question. Absolutely. There's a couple of things we want to talk about this. And actually, Jackie says this all the time, is that for the last 16 years, we've had a leader of our state that's really never been a parent. For the last 8 years, we've had a Secretary of Ed who's never been in the classroom, who's never had to educate our children. As Governor and First Lady, you have our word, and Jackie will have a lot of influence on this. You have our word that Secretary of Education will come from the classroom, will be an educator, will help that. But let me also make this very clear. One of the things we've talked about as your governor, I want to take a little bit of power away from PED. We believe PED is from the top up, down is not working. We need to go back to a system that we empower our communities, that we empower our superintendents, that we empower our principals. Folks, if there's one thing I've learned 32 years working around the country and working in New Mexico, top down doesn't work. We have to get buy-in from the bottom up. The teachers have to be involved. The counselors have to be involved. We have to have more restoration justice programs.
Yeah.
We have to give the skills to our teachers and our principals. 25% of our families live in poverty. You have to educate and teach our children differently. And folks, the people that say we've thrown enough money at education, we actually don't. We actually spend 6% less today than we did 40 years ago. And we're a big rural state. New Mexico is always going to cost more per child to educate our kids. That's just the facts of it.
Yeah. And some of the books are so old in our classrooms, they don't even have 9/11 in them. So we're not even teaching them current history or current important events that our country has been affected by. So we have not been putting money behind education. And these people who are little now, who don't have a voting voice, will eventually grow up and affect the communities around them. So it will pay off now, and they will be putting back into our society all the money that from the taxes and the wonderful jobs that they get. But we have to start now.
So the next question is Randy Trujillo. Thank you, Randy. I'm not really sure where Randy's from, but Randy Trujillo, what is the goal? And let's go. I'll give the questions. You give your side, and then I'll kind of jump in and interrupt you. Like I always do.
Great.
Like I always do. What is your stop laughing, Kyle? Kyle, who travels with us a lot, is laughing because she sees my beautiful wife.
Oh, thanks.
We always kind of. My wife gets mad because I interrupt a lot.
Read.
See, like I'm doing right What is the goal? This is from Randy. What is the goal for elementary and middle school kids so they enjoy education? What can you do in making education fun for them?
All right. So again,
well, I think we've already talked about some of it already.
We have.
So we might have answered some of Randy's questions, but
I think it's for that category. Middle school is hard enough for kids, and for the teachers who can teach and actually enjoy middle school, God bless you. But at that age, it's hard, and you have to get them involved in anything that they will talk to you about. So it's, band, or it's soccer, or it's, math, or anything like robotics. We have so many amazing people that do robotics and are retired lab people who can come in and who have time and education to actually get our kids involved in something that they love.
And here I am interrupting. So
I know.
One thing Jackie hadn't talked about, you and Anthony, Jackie and a friend of hers started a nonprofit. In fact, you guys got like a $25,000 grant.
I just talked about that. You didn't hear me?
No, but you were done. That was about robotics. But I'm talking about coding.
Okay.
So you didn't talk about your coding program, did you?
A little, yeah.
Oh, did okay, sorry. Reading questions. Anyway, but the code.
Pay attention to me.
Stop laughing, Kyle. Andrew, my producer guys, whatever you want to call yourself over here. Oh my God, they're making fun of me. See, I never listen.
Anyway, so let me finish that thought for you, sweetie.
Good.
So at North Star Elementary, which is where our kids go, we begin teaching them at kindergarten algorithms, basically. And that is, in their world, it's pour the cereal into a bowl. You don't pour the cereal on a table. You basically have to get the bowl first, step one, pour the cereal in, step two. So in their world, that's an algorithm. So increasingly, we teach them skills to basically teach them Python by 5th grade. And in 5th grade, they're replicating, not a snake, they're replicating home security systems by 5th grade. Now, the problem with middle school, would you stop it? The problem with middle school is that those coding programs don't go on through middle school, and they're not supported by our current public education system. Some high schools have them. I don't know of any middle schools that have them, honestly. And the stuff that our 5th graders are doing I believe, is more intensive than some of the freshmen at college levels are doing. So imagine if we started our kids early and we kept doing it early, where they're going to be in the college level.
By the way, Jackie and I, my younger sister Judy lives in California, and our kids are 9, and their kids are 11 and 12, 13, something like that. But they're in school, in their school, and so Judy and I talk a lot. And at Thanksgiving when they're all together, my nieces in California have literally been taking coding programs since kindergarten and 1st grade. It's part of the curriculum in California. Our state has no coding programs. I get that there's some schools that have implemented it. I get that there's some charter schools that are doing that. But these are type of programs, folks, these are jobs of today, not the future.
Right.
So to not expose our children into these type of programs, and Jackie and Anthony are already kind of doing this in a small scale. So I know for a fact, in fact, the TED Talk that Jackie did, she talked about, I heard that. She talked about that. Anyway, but that was all about coding in her foundation. So I know that's going to be a big push for her.
Yeah.
Okay.
But hold on real quick. On that point, our state is so rural and that we have to get broadband in every single community, rural communities, and that will then affect jobs and telecommuting jobs in those tiny communities. So right now they're not connected, or they're disconnected, or they're very limited connection. So we have to wire our whole state. And that will bring up so many more business opportunities and educational opportunities. And then it will open up a whole world of learning online, which there are so many resources online. We need to be utilizing those.
And if folks out there saying, oh, there they are going to spend some more money, actually, we have passed, because of matching funds, we have passed over the last 3 years, we have passed on $400 million to almost $1 billion of federal funding at the federal level, because our governor has not talked to our U.S. senators.
It wouldn't look good politically.
And it wouldn't look good politically. And our state has literally passed on about $400 million to $1 billion of federal grant dollars for infrastructure, that about a fourth of that could have gone to rural community broadband expertise. Okay. Lori from Albuquerque, as First Lady, what would you do to advocate for teachers to drive improvements to public education?
Advocate for teachers. So I think that when we're talking about teachers, like I said, we have to empower them and we have to listen to them. I don't think they've been listened to and implement some of their requests. And one of the things that I know, going off onto the housing, is that we have this community of homeless kids in New Mexico that, or kids that jump from apartment complex to apartment complex because of the free rent. That would be like, get first month rent free. And when you have a family who is living at or below poverty line, that's a lot. That's a lot in their world, and it can change their world. So we have to make that consistency, but we also have to trust that the teachers know what they're doing, and we're putting the right teachers and evaluation system in place. So it's all about bringing our teachers into the 21st century.
Absolutely.
And also our system.
Absolutely. And folks, and if you haven't seen our education plan, please go to our website, apo18.com. That's apo18.com. We actually have a list. We have a new pay scale for teachers. We actually have a program that will give teachers incentives to get their masters and PhDs that the state will pay for, and then we'll ask for 7 more years back for you. So go look at that. This is from Michelle Etheridge, and this is a hot topic right now. We did the march last week. Mm-hmm. Which gun safety measures will you be? Which gun safety measures will you be standing behind? This is Michelle Etheridge, and I'm assuming they're talking about gun safety overall. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But what's your thought process of? Well, by the way, tell everybody what you told me when Trump sat there and said, "Hey, I think we should just arm all the teachers." Keep in mind, our kids are 3rd grade. We heard that on the news. Tell everybody what you told me. I told Jeff immediately, when every teacher gets a gun in our kids' school, I will begin homeschooling. Yeah, she looked at me, and so she heard that on the news that night, and she goes, "Let me tell you, the moment our third grade teachers are carrying guns is the moment we start homeschooling our
and
kids."
Nothing against our teachers, Mrs. Whitehouse and Mrs. Stoughton, we love you.
I don't. By the way, don't think you should be carrying a 9mm in the classroom on AR-15.
I just think that is not an appropriate solution. And we've spoken to our principal, and we've reinforced and gotten security doors, and there's been things like that. But we need to start listening to our students more and observing them and having these more open communication. And it is not just about guns. It is about public health. It is about mental health. So we cannot just approach this gun thing in that one. It is not just a legal issue and a legislative issue. It has to be gotten from all sorts and a community embracement. And I'll tell you, we have made, before, we have seen these shootings at our guns. And let me tell you, when we hear of it happened the other day, when we hear of a lockdown in Albuquerque, and we hear a lockdown in our area, it's scary because our kids are at school. When you see those shootings of those young kids, we have 9-year-olds in those schools, so it affects us immediately. And I'll tell you, we have been out there very in the forefront. We believe in gun safety laws. I'm a gun owner. My kids have shot BB guns, but they're not old enough yet to start shooting the big boy guns as they want to start, as they call it. So we believe in the Second Amendment. We believe in the rights of gun owners. Military type assault weapons, sheriffs, Homeland Security, police departments, state police, active military have endorsed our campaign, are supporting our campaign, and they're the ones that don't want AR-15s out on the street. So we have to be smart about this. We have to have common sense laws. We have a plan to bring behavioral health programs back, because our Governor Martinez has literally cut all those programs away. We have a program that will bring those 15 programs back to the state and get federal fund and matching. But I'll be very frank and honest. A week ago, I was favoring, and I'll leave it up to the public schools and those communities, but I was favoring making sure the schools have funding to have police officers or armed guards on every campus to protect those schools, because we do have to look at the world differently now. These soft targets are very dangerous. That's very different from arming teachers. Exactly. But last week, Jackie and I spent some time with some high school kids and spent some time with the kids getting ready for March for Our Lives. Yeah. And they really hit home with one thing, is they don't want military, as they called it, a lockdown prison for their schools. Right. They don't want armed guards and military people walking around their campuses. And they brought up a very good point, that we know we live in a state with many DACA children.
and that the DACA kids would be nervous to go to school and not a safe community. Now, I'll be very frank. I didn't look at it that way until we sat down and talked to them. And I now look at things a lot differently. So I don't even know if you start listening to our youth and sit down with them and discuss with them, creating a military prison type guarded community, they don't want that, folks, at least what we've talked to. And so it's really something we have to sit down with teachers in that environment. And there's some security things we can do also, but it's something that we really have to take a look at and work with the kids, because at the march the other day, we are more moved and more impressed with these kids. Mm-hmm. And we've been saying for a long time now, it is not until the kids rise up, because the adults, my opponent, Pierce, they have been in Congress for years, and we have not addressed this at all. So please take a look at our gun safety stance. We've actually published it. We've been talking about it for a long time. We actually wrote an op-ed about it a month ago. I don't think any of the news organizations ran with it. But again, we have to take a look at those kind of things.
Yeah, guns need to stop being something we can hang over each other's heads from party to party. And we need to look at the state and the security and what's right for our people, because it just banters back and forth between parties, and we're not getting anything done, and we're not appeasing we're just not doing what's right for our state. And that's the whole reason why we're running.
And again, 74% of gun owners, NRA owners, or NRA members want background checks, right. Want safety provisions, and want to protect our kids. But we just don't think arming teachers is the answer. And so anyway, it's 36 minutes. Okay. We'll take the last question.
Okay.
And then I'll wrap up. But the last question is for you. As First Lady, what do you envision your legacy would be after hopefully 8 years? But and we've not really talked about this, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. We actually have a hard time thinking past the primary. Yeah. We have a game plan for the state. But we'll finish up on, as First Lady, what do you envision your legacy would be? And that's from David from Las Cruces.
That is, I'll make this as short as possible, but I do believe that education is the one thing that cannot be taken away from you. And I would like to leave behind kids that are inspired and have imagination, that they are just exploding with potential, and that see the magnificence of our state, and that can come back if they go to another state or another country, learn, and then come back to New Mexico and contribute, because this is an amazing state. And whether you're Anglo, Hispanic, Native American, Asian, African American, it is a state that loves all. And I just want to leave behind kids that are inspired, that are safe, that are fed, that have a community around them, that if their home fails, they can lean on us. So I want happier, better educated kids.
Well, on that note, thank you, sweetie. I know we're 38 minutes into it. It went a little bit longer.
It's his fault.
It's my fault. It's my fault. Anyway, but with a guest on, I think we should do this more often, because I love hanging out with you a little bit more.
Maybe.
Maybe. Oh, now I got a beggar. Anyway, but thank you all for joining us. But more importantly, look, it's a team.
It is.
And we hope you support our campaign, because it's about the kids. It's about New Mexico. It's about turning New Mexico around. We're not running for governor because we want political careers, or because I decided we wanted a political career at the age of 56. We moved back almost 90 years ago to raise our children, to live and work in New Mexico. And wherever we've lived, we've always been involved and tried to improve our community, improve our state. Even when we lived in California, we raised millions of dollars for the Children's Hospital and Cancer Center here. But more importantly, we're running because my opponents have let you down. Our system has let you down. We are ranked 50th in education. We're ranked 50th in job creation. We've lost over 146,000 jobs in the state in the last 10 years. We were up in Colorado, and Coloradoans are shocked that we have the highest unemployment in the country. While they've grown 900,000 jobs up here, we've actually lost 146,000 jobs. Mm-hmm. And then we sit on $23 billion. And you're going to hear me continue to talk about it, because it's my opponent that continues to say what we can't do. It's my opponent that says we can't invest $1 billion into New Mexico. It's my opponent that says we can't improve our schools. It's my opponent that says we can't create 225,000 jobs for New Mexicans. We just disagree. Now, you can look around other regional states. You can look around the country. I can give you a list of cities and states that have invested into themselves. In fact, Colorado has $550 million into their funds, while we sit on $23 billion. Why? Because they invest in schools. They invest in job training. They invest in education. They invest into themselves. And that's what we're talking about. It's time, folks, that we invest into New Mexico, invest into our kids, invest into education, invest into our opportunities to turn the state around. And that's what we're going to do. Now, one last thing I want to talk about is April 4th at the Hotel Albuquerque. Come visit with us from 5:30 to 7:30. We're going to be there. We're going to be there and hosting for educators a meet and greet that you can come visit with Jackie and I. We'd love to hear from the educators. We have a great educational committee that's helping us across the board, and we ask you to come join us. More importantly, share this video, share this time with us, with your friends. We got 7.5 weeks left of this campaign. We're gaining momentum. We're picking up on the polls. If you can help us with donations to make sure we stay on TV, because if you've seen our commercials, we've been on TV. If you want to volunteer, if you want to make phone calls, we're all over the state, and it's coming down to the last 6-7 weeks of this campaign. And I'm just telling you right now, this is your moment. This is our moment for New Mexico. We can stay with the status quo. Mm-hmm. You can continue electing elected officials who's been in office for 20, 30 years, continue doing the same thing over and over and over, or you can invest into a new couple who's from New Mexico, who's experienced things outside the state, who's worked around the country, around the region, we're in New Mexico, and can bring our experience both on the educational side, on a business side, and we know how the government system works. I grew up in it. But folks, this is your time. This is your time to invest in New Mexico. This is your time to turn the state around. I ask you to share it. I'll talk to anybody. Call us. We'll visit with you and come out and see you all the time. Thank you so much again for joining us for Turnaround Tuesdays. Next week, we're not really sure, but I know we're going to talk about tax reform.
Or millennials.
Or millennials. In the next couple of weeks. We're not sure which one we're going to do next week, but take a look at it. But those are going to be the next couple of weeks that we're going to talk about. So thank you all very much. Thank you for joining us today. God bless you guys.
Bye, guys. Take care.
We'll see you guys later.
Yes.